что, уже идет стрим, что ли? Интересно. Блокировали тебя, что ли? Купировали мантыч? Блокировали? А, за расташение, за расташение. А, что им гласных судить? Не согласных, а что? А гласных не стоит. Politics.
Every second, the world around us is changing. Flying cars, artificial intelligence, instant messaging, and life on space stations all seemed impossible 100 years ago. So what could be waiting for us in another 50 years? We promise you won't have to wait long to find out.
My name is Kate.
And I'm Talish.
And we're gonna tell you about the future.
Which starts today.
Robots are taking our jobs.
Some other group is waiting for me there.
What? No, answer the question.
They do guided tours, deliver lectures, and report the news.
What is a robot's favorite kind of music? Heavy metal. Huh.
Robots have learned to feel. They even fill our bed now.
And I will always try to do everything you want me to do.
How will this technology change life in 50 years? Do you want to see it right now?
Do you take Michael to be your husband?
I do.
And do you, Michael, take Erica to be your wife? Yes, I do. You can now exchange the rings.
Don't marry him! We love each other. It doesn't matter that you are brand new and I am an old model, that you could run 300 miles per hour and I have a screen for a mouth, or that I stammer when a cell phone starts ringing beside me. Our love is the only thing that really matters. I love you more than anyone else in this world does. Can I make you the happiest robot in the world? Or do you want to marry this boring brand new bride? Oh, you're breaking my gears.
Well, time does fly by, because 50 years ago, we used to think of robots like this. And then the designs changed until suddenly he came, the future governor of California.
Правда только в беременности, понимаешь? Ну нет. Моей, конечно, да. Да, ты такой. Настолько все уродство. Да. А что они потом с ней делают, это их уже проблема. Сколько они свирепых. Я потому что не женщина, я не буду за это отвечать, да. Ну нет, просто я не к тому, я понимаю. Тогда, ну просто я тебе сказал, что да. Все, больше ничего, да. Да, если честно, жизнь, ну понял. Сейчас
In 1984, a human-like robot was a pure fiction, but today it has become real. Some people would call him a madman, and
copy of Professor Ishiguro.
this is one of Ishiguro's most well-known and controversial creations. It is his robotic doppelganger, which almost exactly mimics the professor's behavior.
Geminoid, height 4, a humanoid robot. Country, Japan. Height, 5'9". It has 50 degrees of mobility, with the help of which the android behaves like a real human. Its development cost was €1 million.
I am a copy of
Hand and face molds help to create the doppelganger. Its body is made of stainless steel and silicon. Professor Ishiguro gave the android not only his appearance.
I wanted to have a perfect copy of myself. Therefore, I gave my hair to the android.
The idea of making humanoid robots was so fascinating for the professor that Erica appeared a few years after he created Geminoid.
And now we are focusing on the artificial intelligence.
What's your purpose?
By building a replica of a human being, my create.
Можешь так, что не заниматься всем этим, это, ну, я понял. Видишь, слабо? Я понял. Это уже, ну, я понял. Ну, вот я понял. Только запомни, что я тебе сказал, что до тебя дошло. Так и говори, просто мне надо работать. А я не буду никогда. Это там как раз социализм в жизни. Вот так вот.
Well, Good Friday evening, day 1401 of this Trump administration. 61 days remain until the inauguration, 2 months from today, in fact. And it's been 13 days since the race was called for Joe Biden. Tonight, the pandemic is still raging out of control in these United States, with over 194,000 more cases reported just in the course of today. That's another daily record. We lost another 2,000 people just yesterday. Yet the outgoing president remains laser focused not on the pandemic, but on overturning the results of the election. Today, the president met with Republican state lawmakers from Michigan. They were summoned to the White House as Trump's legal team is seeking to have the GOP-run state legislatures just go ahead and name Trump electors in states that were won by Joe Biden. The White House press secretary today called the meeting routine. Nothing to see here. And in a statement, the lawmakers didn't say whether the president pressured them to overturn the results, but they did say this, and we quote, "We have not yet been made aware of any information that would change the outcome of the election in Michigan." But they did get to see the White House. The Michigan State Canvassing Board is scheduled to certify the vote on Monday. Georgia officially certified its election results today following a hand recount of nearly 5 million votes. That means the state's 16 electoral votes will officially go to Joe Biden. Earlier today, the president held what was billed as a news conference on prescription drug prices. He took no questions, but did say this about the election.
This is not an easy thing to do. Big Pharma ran millions of dollars of negative advertisements against me during the campaign, which I won, by the way, but, find that out.
And while that is false, he did make a curious aside when praising himself and his administration for all the work he's done on drug prices.
There'll never be anything like this. I just hope they keep it. I hope they have the courage to keep it.
He hopes they keep it in place, presumably meaning the Biden team that takes over in that place January 20th. Still, as Trump refuses to concede, Biden and Harris met with Schumer and Pelosi in Wilmington today, a lot of it devoted to discussion of the need for an emergency aid package. All this comes amid the awful, relentless, and dark winter surge of coronavirus across our country. Our nation's been averaging about 165,000 new cases a day over the past week. Total cases nearing 12 million now. Deaths, of course, have passed 255,000. Today, the president's son, Don Jr., became the 49th person connected to the White House or Trump campaign that we know of to test positive for the virus. Spokesperson said he is asymptomatic and quarantining after testing positive earlier this week. Rudy Giuliani's son, who works for Trump in the White House, has also tested positive for the virus. Andrew Giuliani was at his father's nearly 2-hour-long indoor press conference yesterday at the Republican Party chairman headquarters. The press conference that will be remembered for the flop sweat hair dye ooze. And Rick Scott, proud Florida Republican, became the latest member of the Senate to announce he has tested positive for coronavirus. Senator Scott says he has mild symptoms but is feeling good. Today, Dr. Fauci addressed the massive spike in new cases.
We're not going to completely eliminate it and turn it around rapidly and dramatically, but we can prevent it from increasing. You look at the curve, Chuck, it's almost exponential when you compare the curves in the spring and the curves in the summer with the inflection of the curve where we are right now. We should not accept that we can't do anything about that. Putting vaccines aside for a moment, which will be extraordinarily helpful, if we implement the simple public health measures that I was mentioning to you, we can blunt that inflection.
There is more encouraging news today on the vaccine front. Today, Pfizer applied for emergency approval from the FDA. New York Times reports regulators at the FDA plan to take about 3 weeks to review the vaccine. Meanwhile, there's growing concern Trump's refusal to concede will hurt the Biden effort to fight the pandemic. Earlier today, frequent guest on this broadcast, Dr. Michael Osterholm, who now sits on Biden's advisory board, said this about the need to share information.
Prior to being on this advisory group, I actually had frequent conversations with members of the NIH, the CDC, the FDA, all of these areas in terms of looking towards what can we do, how can we address this pandemic. And since I've been a member of this group, I have not been allowed by law not to speak to these people. This is a big problem. And you can't minimize it by just saying the people who are there now will be there at the end. It's really important that the transition team have access to the kind of information that will allow them to plan now for hitting the ground running on January 20th.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click
Hey! Stop!
Out front tonight, overturning the will of the people. That is what the President of the United States is trying to do, right in front of our eyes. Literally, just look. Watch your own eyes. That's a meeting today. 7 Republican lawmakers from Michigan. The President invited them to the White House, including the leader of the state Senate and the Speaker of the State House. Why did he invite them, bring them, fly them to Washington? Well, in a far-fetched and legally dubious strategy, Trump wants a Republican legislature in Michigan to step in and name electors supporting him to the Electoral College. So to give those electoral votes of Michigan to him instead of to Joe Biden. That's the will of the Michigan voters, right? They chose Joe Biden by a margin of 154,000 votes. But we are learning just now that the Michigan Republicans at that meeting did not cave to Trump. Tonight, they're doing what is right. They have put out a statement that reads in part, quote, "We have not yet been made aware of any information that would change the outcome of the election in Michigan. And as legislative leaders, we will follow the law and follow the normal process regarding Michigan's electors." And then the Michigan Republican leaders continue with a clear message for Trump, quote, "Michigan's certification process should be a deliberate process free from threats and intimidation. And the candidates who win the most votes win elections and Michigan's electoral votes. These are simple truths." The power of a simple statement. Because these are simple truths, not partisan truths, truths. No adjective required. And so is this. These Republicans who are publicly rebuffing the president's wishes tonight are in way too small a category. Because the truth is, too many Republicans have so far lacked the moral backbone. They are silent and complicit or cheering on the president's absurd and dangerous plan. Take Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar telling CNN, quote, "States should be able to disregard the election and instead name their own electors to the Electoral College if the results aren't certified as part of the system set up by our founders." Think about that. And then Republican Senator Lamar Alexander released a statement today. It says, if there is any chance whatsoever that Joe Biden will be the next president, and it looks like he has a very good chance, the Trump administration should provide the Biden team with all the transition materials, resources, and meetings necessary to ensure a smooth transition. Okay, we are really beyond this because let's be clear, it's not chance. It's not up for debate. This is not unsettled or unknown. There isn't like, oh, if he's got a good chance. Alexander's getting props tonight for saying Trump should start the transition in case Biden wins. That is not enough. That is trying to thread a needle here to say, oh, go ahead and start, but we still don't know the outcome here. That statement gives oxygen to a dangerous and deeply undemocratic sentiment that has taken hold across much of this country. Joe Biden will be the next president. And it is time for Republican leaders to follow the likes of Mitt Romney and those Michigan legislators to take a stand and say the simple truth. The people who win elections win elections. It's got to stop dancing in fear around Trump. Caitlin Collins is out front live outside the White House. Jessica Dean is with Joe Biden in Delaware. I want to start with Caitlin tonight. So Caitlin, this meeting, obviously the president, called them to come to Washington from Michigan to have this meeting. Tell us what you've learned.
Clearly, it did not go the way the president wanted it to, because while the White House said it wasn't an advocacy meeting, you're seeing this statement that they put out tonight saying that there is no new information changing their mind about who won the state of Michigan. And I think that's incredibly notable because while the White House was saying that it wasn't political focused, it wasn't politically motivated to have this meeting, we did know that people from the campaign were supposed to be there, including Rudy Giuliani, who did not show up only because his son tested positive for coronavirus. And so the question is really what's next here, Aaron, because the president has made all of these last-ditch efforts to try to overturn the results, unparalleled efforts, we should note, by inviting these state legislators to the White House today, and we're told that he has plans to do similar for Pennsylvania, though those invitations don't appear to have been extended yet, but they really appear to have been exhausting all of their options, because initially they said wait for the votes to come out, then we'll show the president has won. Clearly that did not happen. Then they said wait for our lawsuits. We now see that the president and his allies have lost or withdrawn over 24 lawsuits, only winning 2 cases so far for a small number of votes. That's not going to change the outcome of this election. And then clearly this pressure campaign that the president had in mind didn't work, because you saw his attorney, Sidney Powell, saying yesterday that the goal of this was to get them to change the electors to be for Donald Trump, which of course would be overriding the votes of people in this state, especially Michigan, where Joe Biden has a margin of 150,000 voters. So the question really is what does the president do next? He did not answer our questions today, so it's still really unclear, Aaron.
So, we have this statement, right, that they're saying they're going to follow the normal process. They haven't seen evidence of anything that would change the outcome, and that the process should be free of threats and intimidation. What are you hearing happened in that meeting?
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know exactly what happened yet. It hasn't been over for too long just yet. What I think is remarkable about that statement is, well, not that the actual content, because it's actually very similar to what these GOP leaders have been saying for the last week or two. But it's remarkable because it came out, a minute after they left or so. So clearly they went in knowing that they were not going to have their minds changed. That's probably not what the president was hoping to hear, and if he did, probably disappointed. But both Speaker Lee Chatfield and Mike Shirkey have told me very similar things this week.
Right, and I mean, it seems very clear. Alice, one Republican has told the New York Times that he's coming under enormous pressure regarding his vote, and this is in terms of the certifying that's going on in Michigan. What do you make of this? You're getting pressure on people who are supposed to certify election results to go a different way than the election actually went from the president.
You just have to do your job, and I'm encouraged to hear what the statement from the Michigan leaders that came out of the meeting saying that they have found and seen no evidence that would change the outcome of this election. And keep in mind, yes, we need to make sure that every legal and legitimate and valid vote is counted, but to say there is a national widespread conspiracy is really impossible to believe. States run these elections individually. I've been Deputy Secretary of State in Arkansas, and each Secretary of State takes a lot of pride and a lot of pressure to do this right and to make sure this is accurate. And if the president, many Republicans want to support this president, but if he does see evidence, and there is some actual concrete evidence of voter fraud, we need to see it. We don't need Rudy Giuliani waving affidavits around in a news conference. We need to actually see it, and then we can investigate it, because the integrity of the election process is paramount here, and we need to make sure that we get it right.
Right, of course, in 27 or 28 cases, right now 27 have not gone in their favor. Ben, let me ask you about the case in Michigan here. When you hear Jonathan's reporting, Michigan's supposed to formally certify their results on Monday. What can the Biden team do if that, for some reason, doesn't happen, right? When I'm referring to Alice with this great pressure that is coming on those who are supposed to do the final certification here.
Well, I believe that they will be required to do their duty. The Biden campaign would bring what's called a mandamus action, which means you tell a public official to do what their job is, which in this case is certifying. Now, I think that there are ways in Michigan law for a state board to ask for more time, but this is not one of those instances where they should invoke that, even if it's true, because this is all pretty straightforward. What the president is doing is completely unprecedented to try and disenfranchise voters by denying a certificate of election. So I suspect that the Biden team would go into court pretty quickly to get the board to do that.
Jonathan, I just want to make a clear point here, which you were making, right? You have, well, you weren't making this explicitly, but let me just contrast what you're talking about with those Michigan leaders, right? The speaker, they went to this meeting because they were asked by the president. They went. Within a minute, they put out a statement saying, "We will not put up with intimidation. We have seen no evidence. We're going to go ahead." Right, just the fact, and they put in there, these are simple truths. This is how elections work, okay? And yet, on the national level, silence from some of the leadership. Silence. Nobody said any such thing. What you know these gentlemen. Does this surprise you? I mean, I don't want to say this is a profile of courage, but in the environment we're in right now, it is.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they were obviously under intense pressure. Today, Senator Shirkey was greeted at the airport as he left from Detroit. He was at the airport and protesters. So they knew going into the lies from them. And I think, they knew obviously what the question was going to be, whether the president was able to change their mind about awarding electors to the pretty clear winner of the popular vote right now. Their statement about threats and intimidation, I think that was directed more at the canvassers who decide Monday. The GOP leaders are, asking the public to kind of cool off because those canvassers are just getting flooded and hounded by people right now on both sides of the aisle, asking them to do something that would be, asking them to weigh in on a task that is usually rather perfunctory. I mean, usually, the counties have already certified results, and the state board,
Yeah, sorry, we're having a little bit of trouble with your audio.
Tonight, several breaking stories as we come on the air. The shooting inside a shopping mall, the images just coming in. Multiple victims taken away on stretchers. Police responding to what they call a very active situation. The terrifying moments just as holiday shopping gets underway. The president's son, Donald Trump Jr., testing positive for COVID-19. What we're learning. Pfizer, now the first company to seek FDA emergency approval for a COVID vaccine. Who would get it first and when? It comes as the U.S. sees the worst numbers yet. A record 185,000 new cases in a single day. Deaths reaching 2,000 a day for the first time since May. A record 80,000 hospitalized. Tonight, new crackdowns and curfews. And Rachel Maddow revealing her partner's battle with COVID-19, her powerful message. President Trump making his first public appearance in a week, falsely claiming he won the election. The president inviting Michigan